Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to tell you what Bayley really thinks about potentially missing out on WrestleMania 37.
2 new champions were crowned at NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1.
AEW have finally confirmed the date for the first ever Blood and Guts match.
And could one of the biggest stars on NXT be heading to the main roster? I'm Adam Wilborn.
And I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Okay, so it's WrestleMania week. Let's kick things off with a WrestleMania story. Bayley has been speaking to TalkSport's Alex McCarthy. Shouts to Alex, very lovely man, doing a great job. Touching on a number of topics, one of which, perhaps inevitably, is her absence from the current WrestleMania card. One of the biggest stars of WWE's pandemic era. Acclaim across the board for her performances as SmackDown Women's Champion, the feud with Sasha Banks, the friendship with Sasha Banks, and everything else. Bayley has been tremendous, so when you look at the WrestleMania card and see her name isn't there, it's pretty natural to go, what the hell's going on? She was asked about this by Alex McCarthy. Bayley said the following. When asked, what's going on with you and WrestleMania? She said, I cannot give you an honest answer, dude. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. It just didn't happen. But even if there was something, I don't know if I would tell you guys to spoil it. But yeah, it's okay. I'll be here for a long time. I might just jump the barricade and steal my own moment. If they won't give me one, I'll just steal it. She went on a little bit stating that she had pitched ideas for WrestleMania 37. Maybe there'll be a big surprise cooking. Who knows? Wrestlers are wrestlers. They are always working. And like Bayley says, if there was some cool surprise up her sleeve, she wasn't just going to go, hey, listen, I'm just going to tell you exactly what's going to happen and ruin everything. That would suck. She's not going to do that. So I would like to see her make her way on the card somehow. I'm not always a fan of when we come to WrestleMania and just throwing people on the card for the sake of it, but it's Bayley. She deserves it. She was awesome last year. She's been good this year as well, even though she's had limited opportunities aside from through Ding Dong Hello, which is very entertaining. But I would love to see her do something big in Tampa. Let's hope she does hop the barricade and cause chaos, because that would be mighty fun.
Yeah, like you say, WrestleMania is no longer the be-all and end-all it previously was, but it's still the biggest show of the year for WWE, without question. And yeah, she merits some sort of appearance. I hope that what she said there to Alex is just a bit of a work, and she knows she's either got some mad match or she's going to be in some wild tag team as part of the tag team turmoil thing, or like you say, she's just going to come out, do an episode of Ding Dong Hello, and Becky Lynch is behind the door and they have a match. I don't know. I've heard lots of fantasy booking, but one way or another, yeah, she needs to make some sort of appearance at WrestleMania 37 because, like you say, even though all her storylines are nice and wrapped up with the likes of Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, still merits an appearance from Bayley because what a Definitely. 2020 she had. She's one of the most crucial people in WWE, arguably. Right, from a former star of NXT to the current NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 1 took place last night. An excellent show with numerous title changes. The first of them being new NXT Tag Team Champions. Now, we kind of all knew that was going to happen. Those belts were vacant after the injury to Danny Burch. Of course, get well soon, Danny. Shame that Burch and Lorcan couldn't defend those belts. But MSK are your new NXT Tag Team Champions. Well deserved. Bit of a big team developing here on NXT. They've really risen through the ranks quickly. They haven't been given the whole welcome to WWE, you start at the bottom thing. They came in, they won the Dusty Cup. They've now won the tag team titles. They won the triple threat match, which also featured Legado del Fantasma and the team I was hoping was going to win. But nevertheless, let's hope this feud between MSK and the grizzled young veterans continues. I just love all of MSK and their offense. And also, we have a new NXT Women's Champion, Raquel Gonzalez, ending Io Shirai's 304-day reign with that title. The match was just a wild main event, including Io Shirai jumping off the big skull, basically, on the NXT set. Gonzalez even kicked out of Shirai's moonsault after that, but then did one of the hardest looking lariats. Actually, no, Walter was on the card. One of the hardest female lariats on the card. And then powerbombed Io Shirai for the 1, 2, 3. The right decision for both titles for me, Andy.
Yeah, I think we called the Gonzalez title switch. Yeah. I think we've done it about 7 times over the past 2 days. So yeah, it's definitely something we've been looking forward to. And, she's been one of the best booked, aside from maybe the tag team title stuff, that was weird. She's been one of the best booked wrestlers in WWE, if not the best booked wrestler in WWE all year. So it's good stuff. It was a good match. MSK have come in and just been given the rocket push. Often when a group or an individual comes into NXT, it's a slow build towards the title, and that can work very well. But nope, these guys have come in. They've shot straight to the top. They've earned it from their performances. They're resonating with the fans. I think they're going to be very, very, very over when full audiences return, and it's refreshing to see them just going, nah, screw it, these guys are really good, let's just not mess around with them. So
yeah, their offense is so eye-catching, and whilst I remember it, Bronson Reed won the NXT North American Championship Gauntlet Eliminator, so he will face Johnny Gargano tonight on NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver Night 2.
It'll have a hard task of beating last night's card tonight's one, but hey, look, it's the second night, let's see how it does. Blood and Guts finally confirmed in AEW. It's going down on May the 5th. That episode of Dynamite is going to be the Pinnacle versus Chris Jericho's newly babyface Inner Circle. So the brief history of Blood and Guts is going to be AEW's version of War Games. 2 rings, big cage, wrestlers entering at timed intervals, all of that good stuff. Interesting to see if it's more in line with the WCW gimmick with the roof on the cage and the match beyond and all that stuff rather than the WWE version, but I digress. This came together on last night's show. Jericho cut a really good babyface promo with the Inner Circle running through the Pinnacle. This ended with the Blood and Guts announcement. There was some stuff later on, big brawl. Jericho got beaten up by the Pinnacle babyface Mike Tyson, all right. The Savior came out and saved him, and then they hugged and shook hands and stuff. He's actually going to be a guest enforcer next week, Mike Tyson. But I'm getting off topic here. Blood and Guts finally, it was originally supposed to go down, of course, in, I believe it was the 25th of March, 2020 in Newark, New Jersey, which was going to be like close to or a sold out show with a roaring crowd. It was going to be the Elite versus the Inner Circle. Of course, the global bastard came along and said, no, sir, we are not doing that. AEW held off on it. Now they're pulling it off inside Daly's place over a year after the original date. Really interested to see what this thing looks like. I thought that the Pinnacle and Inner Circle stuff was the biggest highlight on last night's episode of Dynamite, but if you want my true thoughts on Dynamite, check out my article on the website later on. But yeah, Blood and Guts in the books, should be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's about damn time, like you say, Andy. It's a real shame when it got cancelled last year, but completely understandable because no one really wants to compete in, like you say, effectively War Games with no one there. So glad that it's finally come around. And like you say, the Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle is the best stuff on AEW right now, in my opinion. So really excited to see what they do with that. Let's conclude by returning to NXT. And one of the biggest stars of NXT could be heading to the main roster, or at the very least, Triple H didn't rule out the possibility of Io Shirai heading to Raw and SmackDown after losing that NXT Women's Championship. He basically said, look, with the amazing stuff she's done, and she has been incredible over the past year, it's down to her if she wants to go to Raw or to SmackDown or stick around in NXT and maybe go back after that NXT Women's Championship. I will say this, Andy, I think she'll do sensationally if booked right wherever she goes. And after that performance and all the preceding matches we've seen, it's going to be a real job for Vince McMahon to screw her up, but I think he's up to the task.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone can do it, let's be honest. But yeah, Io Shirai is one of the best wrestlers in the world, period. She has been for about 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer than that. Yeah, Shawn Michaels made a good point on this media call where he was like, why would you want to go anywhere? They've got the best women's division in the world. It's so talent-rich, the NXT scene. It's full of potentially exciting opponents for Io Shirai if she wants to stick around, regardless of whether she's fighting for titles or whatever else. Io's awesome. She's great. I've always been a huge fan of her work. I think it's translated really well throughout the course of her NXT run. Wish her all the best wherever she goes next. I think she could really be a vanguard for the Raw or SmackDown women's divisions, which have struggled quite a bit in 2021. But, you know, there's always obvious concerns when transitioning to the old main roster. So,
yes.
You know, keep it at arm's length for me personally, but I am excited to see what she does next, because that was a great run.
The build to her matches have often been really lackluster in NXT, and yet every time she just knocks it out of the park with those matches. Yeah. And as much as there've been great moments throughout all them, I'm thinking about like the massive bump with Candice LeRae off the ladder, for example. My favourite memory will always be her putting a bin on her head and jumping off the War Games cage. always. Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions. At WhatCulture WWE, of course, if you want to get in touch with us. Mark Smith starts us off talking about NXT TakeOver, actually. Mark says, being honest, the first time I've ever watched MSK, but my God, did They make me want them to win, and now I'm hooked. Which wrestler or tag team had you hooked? Andy Murray with one match.
So I'll give you two answers, right? One's a cheat answer and it's Ronda Rousey because it was her first match. But like the opening, like her debut at the Royal Rumble was a little bit awkward and the angles leading up to this thing, weren't great. But then the match itself I thought was absolutely perfect and such a good introduction to a hot new star. The other one, the non-cheat example, I guess I'm going to go with Ricky Starks and Aaron Solo. And this is such a nerd answer because, they were wrestling on the Texas Indies a few years ago. My first experience of them was then they were teaming up as their tag team was called Extra Talented, Extra Talent Ed. There's a little hyphen at the end there. Just charisma leaping off the page, man, in a really smart, well-worked match for, I believe, Wrestle Circus, a promotion that's no longer operating. So, yeah, there's my answers.
For me, I sound like a broken record. I've talked about this so often. It's going to have to be the Street Profits in that ladder match where they won the NXT tag team titles. Possibly my favourite ever ladder match. But their entrance, I was very late to the party with NXT and didn't really keep in the loop. And then they had that entrance with the cups and coming through the crowd back when that was the thing. And I was just like, well, I don't know who these guys are, but I'm getting a red cup from my kitchen and I'm watching this solid match. And then they won and it was fantastic. So yeah, I'd have to go for the Street Profits on that. But let us know yours in the comment section. And we'll move on to Frankly Salanas's question, who says, I wish Kairi Sane would come back for one night at WrestleMania and swing from the pirate ship at Raymond James Stadium. It's just wishful thinking, but do you think she could make a shock appearance to help Asuka?
Yeah, I'd love to see them do something with her and the pirate ship. Speaking of the pirate ship, why aren't Ailstorm doing the soundtrack for Mania? Sort that out, WWE. But I don't see it happening. It depends, I guess, on the international travel restrictions. We saw Maki Ito come over on very short notice for the AEW pay-per-view the other month. So maybe it's logistically possible. For some reason, I don't really have any particular insight on this. I can't open a window and go, hey, this is a good take, Andy Murray. I just don't see it happening, but it would be really cool.
Yeah, and if we can't get her because of travel restrictions, let's just get Pirate Paul Burchill, shall we? Final question today comes from Azure Eye Silver Dragon, who says, morning, gents. I think at the next Survivor Series, WWE should unify the WWE and Universal Championship and have one WWE World Heavyweight Champion. I just think having two world champions defeats the point of those belts. Question we're often asked this, Andy. What do you reckon?
Definitely hear what you were saying. It was something I was definitely in favour of earlier in the brand split when they brought it back in 2016. But my position has changed somewhat, particularly over the past year, because I think it's really actually quite cool now that we have a character like Roman Reigns who can rule SmackDown. And then over on Raw, we've had Drew, we've got Bobby Lashley at the moment. I've been enjoying the dual titles, and I think it kind of makes sense to have a universal and a world or traditional WWE title. Have them with different names, rather than going, hey, these are both the world titles.
Yeah.
I totally agree with your concerns because they were mine a few years ago. But my feeling on this honestly changes like the weather. Ask me again in a month and I'll probably want to combine them as well. I think that both situations are pretty solid. The traveling world champion between brands makes a lot of sense, but things are working pretty well at the moment as well. So whatever you want, man, I think we're in a good situation.
Yeah, I agree with you for now, like you say, Andy. And if you're going to unify any belts, make it all of the tag team belts, because it's bloody stupid, as Phil and I were chatting about on our Your Questions Answered podcast yesterday. Yeah, I'm fine with having multiple world champions, both female and male, but the tag teams are ridiculous. You don't need them across NXT as well. Have one for all three brands. Job done. Let's move on to today's, and finally, I just want to give a nod to Joseph Rude, aka at Eric Redbeard, aka the former Eric Rowan from WWE, who last night, understandably after that mad Walter Ciampa match, tweeted, "Hey, at Triple H, I want to fight Walter. I would like to see that, Andy."
You got to shoot your shot, haven't you? Man, I have such, admiration for Eric Redbeard and everything else. It's kind of a shame that he hasn't found a new home in pro wrestling yet. But man, can you imagine Walter trying to chop that big tree down? I think that'd be a lot of fun. Get the guy away from the spiders and all the other severed spines and all that stuff. The guy, there's a role for him, I think, as just a big, bruising, big, beefy beef man. So yes, bring him in. Why not? Bring him back. Let's do it. I want to see it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's make it happen. And if you're wondering how bad a Walter chop can be, look at what happened to the TakeOver desk last night when he had a full word with it. Right, let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. For daily wrestling podcasts, myself and the Dadley Boys reviewing the final Wednesday Night War ever, possibly, today. As I said, What Culture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcast from. For that, plus you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray
at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for...
Ooh, it's a different one. Follow me at Adam Wilborn, at WhatCultureWWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
I'm running out of H's. Someone help me.